All right, visit our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. We have the information for tonight's show posted right there. You'll see the picture of Professor Kaba Kamene, also known as Booker T. Coleman. You've seen him in Hidden Colors 1, 2, and 3. You've heard him on the African History Network show and the Michael Imhotep show before. And you see the picture of he and Malcolm X there. We're going to bring him on in just a minute here. But here is, to set the tone, we're going to discuss Malcolm's times and his relevance in 2015. We know February 21st will be the anniversary of his assassination. What can we learn from Malcolm's life, brilliant spirit, and resilience? And also, where is the Malcolm X in you? Take a listen to this.
Who are you? Yeah. You don't know? Don't tell me Negro. That's nothing. What were you before the white man named you a Negro? And where were you? And what did you have? What was yours? What language did you speak then? What was your name? It couldn't have been Smith or Jones or Bunch or Powell. That wasn't your name. They don't have those kind of names where you and I came from. No, what was your name? Why don't you now know what your name was then? Where did it go? Where did you lose it? Who took it? And how did he take it? What tongue did you speak? How did the man take your tongue? Where is your history? How did the man wipe out your history? What did the man do to make you as dumb as you are right now?
All right. All right. We got Brother Kaba Kamene on the line. Hotep, brother, how you doing tonight? Brother Kaba, are you there?
I'm here.
All right. Hotep, brother, how you doing tonight?
Hotep, brother, Hotep, I'm doing excellent, brother. How are you?
Oh, I'm good, man. I'm good. Always good to talk to you, man. So it's great to have you on the show tonight. Absolutely.
Well, brother, I appreciate you inviting me on.
Absolutely. And I appreciate your appreciation.
All right, then. I like that.
Well, look, man, I know you and I talked earlier today and we talked yesterday. And, you know, this conversation tonight is very timely because, as I said, we're coming up on the 21st of February, which is the anniversary of the assassination of Malcolm X's transition. And the conversation we're going to have tonight, we're dealing with Malcolm X, the man, his times, and his relevance in 2015. What can we learn from Malcolm's life, brilliance, spirit, resilience, and where is the Malcolm X in you? And you and I were talking yesterday, and you've told me about this before, but you teach a class on Malcolm X at the college level. And this is because of that conversation you and I had yesterday, this topic tonight came about. Tell people, if you don't mind, tell people about teaching and where is it taught?
I am I'm a professor at the State University at New Paltz. I'm part of the Black Studies department there.
Okay.
And every spring I teach a course on El Haj Malik El Shabazz, our brother Malcolm X. I've been teaching this now. This is my 10th year teaching the course on Malcolm X. And, you know, what I always tell folk about this particular college class is how enriching it's been for me. Because when I first taught it in the fall of 2005, I had read as much as I could. I had a library on Malcolm. I had known and had spoken to Dr. Betty Shabazz. I used to visit her at Medgar Evers when she was in the School of Nursing. Ilyasha Shabazz had graduated from New Paltz. And so I really thought that I had known Malcolm. But in teaching this class, it made me revisit much of what I thought I knew. And so this course deals with Malcolm X. The title of it is Malcolm X, the Man and His Time. And what became so important about this was not just the story of Malcolm, but the times that he lived in. And the relevancy to us today in 2015 and forevermore. This is a relevance that will continue throughout life. And our brother, our ancestor, Malcolm X, became an example. He became a living entity through which we could use him to view our own lives. And so with my students, the cornerstone question that I give to them the first day of class. Yesterday, Tuesday, was our third class for the spring term. And so the question is, where is Malcolm in you? And I always go back to Denzel Washington, the great actor that played Malcolm in Spike Lee's movie, which I show.
Right.
And when they asked Denzel, did you attempt to invoke the Malcolm in you when you played his life? And Denzel Washington very astutely said no. He said, I attempted to invoke the spirit that was in Malcolm. Because Malcolm is Malcolm. I am Denzel. But the spirit of Malcolm is in us all. And so I wanted to portray him and his spirit. And that is what I tell my students. And that's what I tell our people. Where is Malcolm in you? Where is that indomitable, courageous entity within you that will face the wind? Even when death lurks at your back, where is it in you? And that's what I attempt to teach. Because Malcolm lived in some of the most tumultuous, powerful times in the world. He was born towards the end of World War II, on the cusp of the Great Depression, moving through World War II, through Vietnam, through an assassination of the President of the United States. And so he represents a very powerful entity for us.
Absolutely. Okay, look, we're coming up on commercial break here. You can give us a call at 888-669-2281. 888-669-2281 if you have a question or comment, and tell us where's the Malcolm X in you, to you in your life. How has he helped you? We're going to talk some more on the other side of the break with Professor Kaba Kamene. And when we come back, I want to find out from you, Brother Kaba, what has been the response from some of your students to the course that they have taken, and how has Malcolm impacted their life. We're going to talk about that on the other side of the break. Visit our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. We have the information for tonight's show posted right there. You'll see the picture of Professor Kaba Kamene and Malcolm X. And you can share that on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in. And if you have comments, if you can't call in, you can post them on the thread of that Facebook post. Also, we may be able to read them on the air. Okay, you listen to the Michael M. Hotep Show on the Empowerment Radio Network, where knowledge is power. We'll be back in a few minutes. Welcome back to the Michael M. Hotep Show on the Empowerment Radio Network, where knowledge is power. All right, that's some Lauryn Hill for you. Everything is everything. Give us a call, 888-669-2281. 888-669-22. We're speaking with Professor Kaba Kamene, also known as Booker T. Coleman. We're talking about Malcolm X, the man, his times, and his relevance in 2015. What can we learn from Malcolm's life, from his brilliance, from his spirit, from his resilience? Where is the Malcolm X in you? Here's a quick 1-minute clip of Malcolm talking about economic empowerment and self-reliance.
The desegregation decisions and other type of legislation and Supreme Court decisions depends upon changing the white man's mind. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that our own mind has to be changed. We have to change our mind about ourselves.
In what way?
Well, so he teaches us the importance of moral reformation, a knowledge of self. And for instance, the average so-called Negro, he doesn't think that he can go into business and provide jobs for himself. And because of this, he thinks that he can only get a job from the white, get clothes from the white man, or he can only get food from the white man. And we who follow the Honorable Elijah Muhammad are taught that the same thing that the white man has done for himself and his kind, if our people could if we could be cured of our slave mentality that was indoctrinated into us during slavery, we would realize that just as the white man can do these things for himself and his kind, we can get together in unity and harmony and do the same thing for ourselves and our kind.
All right. All right, hey, Brother Kaba, okay, are you still there? Brother Kaba. All right, we have Professor Kaba there.
Yes, my brother, I'm here.
Okay, all right, good. So we just played a clip of Brother Kaba, Brother Malcolm X talking about economic empowerment. Okay. All right, now right before the break, we were getting into this discussion dealing with Malcolm X, and you, Brother Kaba, what has been the response or some of the responses that you have received from some of your students in this course on Malcolm X that you teach?
Well, you know, the key to remember is that every one of my students today was not alive when Malcolm was with us. So none of them come from a position where they could in any way have a sense of who he was as a person living through his experience.
Okay.
Many of them, his life was touched. It's an elective course, which is a higher level course, so that we also know that that the students that take this elect to take it. It's not that they have to take it. It's something that they want to study.
Okay.
Also, that many of them, because one of the first things I do in the beginning of the term, my first question, before I even go over the syllabus, is, why did you take this class? Of the classes you could have chosen, why did you pick this one?
Right.
And as it relates to Malcolm, it is because he has been spoken of, but the young people can pick up that very few people want to really get deep into him, like an American history class in high school or whatever class they've taken in college as it relates to history or sociology or whatever. Very seldom do they ever really speak about Malcolm as the man, as the individual. And so that perks a lot of young people, because a lot of young people are going to gravitate towards the controversial or what appears to be controversial more than the everyday. So many of them take the class because something has interested them. There are, they have some of them, and when I take, none of them saw Spike Lee's movie. None of them have seen a video of Malcolm. They really don't know what he looks like, except for pictures that they may have seen of him. Yeah, because, you know, you're dealing with 50 years after the fact, and that's 50 years after his assassination. So you're dealing with 2.5 generations. If you count 20 years a generation, you're dealing with 2.5 generations of people removed from his existence.
Okay, now let me ask this question. Now, you said that the students, most of them, have not seen the 1992 movie X that Spike Lee did with Denzel Washington. Wow. Because they just showed that on TV. It was on, I think it was on Centric. I've seen it a couple times in the past, maybe 3 times in the past 2 weeks.
That's right. These students didn't see it.
Okay.
You know, it's our generation. Because remember, Malcolm is removed as a person in history.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you something. One of my students of European descent, young man, said to me when I asked why they're taking his class, I asked him, you know, why are you taking the class? And he said that the way in which Malcolm was covered in his high school history class was in no way explaining to him who Malcolm was. And I don't know if we can curse on air, so I'm not going to curse.
No, we can't curse on air. No, we can't.
Okay, all right. It's different from Blog Talk. So
yeah, it's different from Blog Talk.
So let me just use the word in place of the S word.
Right.
Let me use the word mess.
Okay.
He said the thing he liked about Malcolm, at least from what he gathered, is that he was a black man that didn't take no mess from white people.
Right. Absolutely. Now,
okay. So that was his image. That was his image of Malcolm.
Right. Wow.
Now here is a man in the face of all this. He ain't taking nothing from nobody. He's going to drop it, the truth. And these young people today, 2015, they want to know it. And the way I bring it to them, brother, for those of you who know me,
Right.
I bring it to them live and real.
Absolutely. Now, let me ask you a question. I want to back up a little bit. You said that Malcolm X has been removed from history. Okay. Why removed from history?
Malcolm, well, I can't give a definitive answer, but I can give you why I think he's been removed as it relates to the civil rights movement, because they really want to focus more on an approach towards civil rights that is more working within the system. I know that when I taught, because my background is social studies, I know that I taught every year. I've taught every grade that exists, including pre-K, and I've also taught PhD doctoral students. So I've taught every grade, and and I've also taught GED. Mm-hmm. So Malcolm is even mentioned in GED social studies.
You said he is or is not?
He's not. He is not mentioned at all.
Wow.
You beat the king to tell you the truth.
Okay.
So that the reason why Malcolm has been removed is because he is such a dynamic voice that has been able to, as Malcolm so clearly did, he was able to make it plain. Mm-hmm. Very simple, very straightforward, but very dynamic and very concentrated. And so Malcolm, my experience in looking at the history books, because I have to look over the curriculums of the New York City Board of Ed. I was one of the consultants that looked over the curriculum and developed a rapport with what would go into the system and what would not go into the system. And so in my perusal of different social studies books from pre-K straight through 8th grade, which is where my area was, Malcolm is not there. And Malcolm is not there because he gave such a of the problem in America.
Right, exactly. Okay, hold that thought. We have to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to pick up on that Malcolm and his clear analysis of America and why is Malcolm left out of history. And we want to hear from you as well. Give us a call, 888-669-2281, 888-669-2281. Tell us the impact that Malcolm X has had on you and your life. What have you learned from him? We want to hear from you. 1-888-669-2281. You listen to the Michael M. Hotep Show on the Empowerment Radio Network, where knowledge is power. We're speaking with Professor Kaba Kamene, also known as Booker T. Coleman. We'll be back in a few minutes. Welcome back to the Michael M. Hotep Show on the Empowerment Radio Network, where knowledge is power. That's some soul to soul for you. Back to life, back to reality. Give us a call, 888-669-2281, 888-669-2281. We're speaking with Professor Kaba Kamene, also known as Booker T. Coleman. You've seen him in Hidden Colors 1, 2, and 3. We're talking about Malcolm X, the man, his times, and his relevance in 2015. What can we learn from Malcolm X's life, his brilliance, his spirit, his resilience? Where is the Malcolm X in you? Give us a call. We want to hear from you. 888-669-2281. All right. Brother Kaba, right before the break, you were talking about how Malcolm X is not only left out of history, but even when you taught courses for people to get their GED, Malcolm X was left out of that history. And you talked about Malcolm having a clear analysis of America. Okay, and you think this is why he was left out of history. Tell us about that and then that clear analysis of America. Brother Kaba, did you hear the question?
No, man, I didn't hear it. I haven't heard anything since we went on break.
Okay. Right before the break, you were talking about Malcolm X being left out of the GED program when they taught history, and how Malcolm had the most accurate, clearest analysis of America. Why he's been left out of history. Tell us about that clear, accurate analysis of America that Malcolm had.
Well, Malcolm not only had the problem under control, but he also needed the solution.
Okay. Hey, are you outside? You sound like you're in a tunnel.
No, man, I'm moving through something now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You just sound kind of far away. But go.
It might be a little bit better.
Okay, but go ahead.
Okay. The concept was that he had a very clear understanding of the problem historically, and he was able to explain it to people who, up until that point, might not have understood it as clearly, and he was able to cross-trace it in the way to explain the problem. But the problem in this control, he also had the solution.
Okay, let's do this. Let me do this. Hey, Brother Kaba, I'm going to give you a couple minutes to get situated, okay, because it's a little hard to hear you. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to get situated, okay? Okay, so just stand by. Take a listen to this, everybody. This is Martin Malcolm in America, M to the third power. Martin Malcolm and Marcus, M to the third power, talking about economic empowerment.
The Negro collectively is richer than most nations of the world. We have an annual income of more than $30 billion a year, which is more than all of the exports of the United States and more than the national budget of Canada. Did you know that? That's power right there if we know how to prove it.
We should own and operate and control the economy of our community. We have to become involved in a program of re-education into the importance of knowing that when you spend your dollar out of the community in which you live, the community in which you spend your money becomes richer and richer. The community out of which you take your money becomes poorer and poorer. And because these Negroes who have been misled, misguided, are breaking their necks to take their money and spend it with the man is becoming richer and richer, and you're becoming poorer and poorer. And then what happens? The community in which you live becomes a slum. It becomes a ghetto. The conditions become run down. And then you have the audacity to complain about poor housing in a rundown community. Why, you run it down yourself when you take your dollar.
We've got to strengthen black institutions. I call upon you to take your money out of the banks downtown and deposit your money in Tri-State Bank. We are telling you to follow what we're there. You have 6 or 7 black insurance companies here. Take out your insurance there. Now, these are some practical things that we can do. We begin the process of building a great economic base. We've got to give ourselves to this struggle until the end. We've got to see it through.
So our people not only have to be re-educated to the importance of supporting black business, but the black man himself has to be made aware of the importance of going into business. And once you and I go into business, we own and operate at least the businesses in our community. What we will be doing is developing a situation wherein we will actually be able to create employment for the people in the community.
The black man must unite in one grand racial hierarchy, making a racial empire upon which the sun shall never set. Be black, by black, is black, and all else will take it.
You don't know. Who are you? You don't know. Don't tell me Negro, that's nothing. What were you before the white man named you a Negro? And where were you? And what did you have? What was yours? What language did you speak then? What was your name? It couldn't have been Smith or Jones or Bunch or Powell. That wasn't your name. They don't have those kind of names where you and I came from. No, what was your name? And why don't you now know what your name was then? Where did it go? Where did you lose it? Who took it? And how did he take it? What tongue did you speak? How did the man take your tongue? Where is your history? How did the man wipe out your history? What did the man do to make you as dumb as you are right now?
All right, that's Malcolm asking some questions. All right, now, Professor Kaba Kamene, you were telling us about how Malcolm had been left out of history, even on the GED level when you were teaching a GED course, and you talked about how you think it's because he had the most accurate, clearest analysis of America. So what was that analysis that he had?
Well, you see, what you just played right now in terms of when you listen to him speak. Malcolm was given many gifts as it relates to not just an orator or a speaker, but his basic life and the life that he lived gave him a phenomenal ability to present these ideas in a way that captured the imagination of the people that he was speaking to.
Right.
And in a society such as what we live in, because I poured over, as I've developed this class and as I've done what I've done, I've poured over these tapes of Malcolm. And I've listened to him in ways that I didn't listen to him over the years. And every time I listen to him, I can hear the connection. Malcolm was a spiritual speaker. And by that I mean not as it relates to religion. I mean he could connect with your soul. He could connect with your spirit, with what animates you, what makes you move. And Malcolm was able to move our people to action. When you look at his history and how he would go into a home in a community, when he was building up the Nation of Islam, he built it up in ways where he built it little by little, step by step, but pretty soon it became such a massive movement that what Malcolm did in breaking down the conditions of America, he could break it down in a way that would apply to every other culture that was expressed. Eventually, Malcolm appealed to many people. One of his most trusted people that was with him was a sister who was of Japanese descent.
What was her name?
She saw, brother, her name escapes me right now because I wouldn't expect to talk about. But it was a Japanese sister. She was there when he was assassinated. She continued his legacy afterwards. She went to all of the meetings. She was taken aback by Malcolm, not because she was Japanese and because he was black, but because he was able to speak to the spirit of a person.
Okay.
And he, more than anybody else, represented the very best of what America claimed to be as a revolutionary force. Malcolm was that personified.
Okay, hold that thought right there. We got to take a quick break. On the other side of the break, we're going to continue with Malcolm X, that revolutionary force, that personification of that revolution. You listen to the Michael M. Hotep Show on the Empowerment Radio Network, where knowledge is power. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, welcome back to the Michael M. Hotep Show on the Empowerment Radio Network, where knowledge is power. That is Up by Arrested Development, featuring K.O. Cates and Toya. That's a great song by them, Up. We're speaking with Professor Kaba Kamene, also known as Booker T. Coleman. You've seen him in Hidden Colors 1, Hidden Colors 2, if you're just tuning in, and in Hidden Colors 3. We're talking about Malcolm X, the man, his times, and his relevance in 2015. February 21st, 2015 will be the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Malcolm X. Why is he still relevant today? We're gonna go back to Brother Kaba in just a second here, but here's a quick 1 minute clip of Malcolm X.
The desegregation decisions and other type of legislation and Supreme Court decision changing the white man's mind. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that our own mind has to be changed. We have to change our mind about ourselves.
In what way?
Well, so he teaches us the importance of moral reformation, a knowledge of self. And for instance, the average so-called Negro, he doesn't think that he can go into business and provide jobs for himself. And because of this, he thinks that he can only get a job from the white man, or he can only get clothes from the white man, or he can only get food from the white man. And we who follow the Honorable Elijah Muhammad are taught that the same thing that the white man has done for himself and his kind, if our people could if we could be cured of our slave mentality that was indoctrinated into us during slavery, we would realize that just as the white man can do these things for himself and his kind, we can get together in unity and harmony and do the same thing for ourselves and our kind.
All right, so reasons why Malcolm is left out of history, Brother Kaba.
Yeah, well, just listen in that 1 minute. What Malcolm was able to do.
Yes.
What Malcolm said is that through his teaching and through what he learned from people, was that, number one, is that we as a people need to get our moral exaltation back. That we need to get back into understanding a moral tradition, a moral code that was taken from us when we were enslaved. He said the second thing is to get a sense to know yourself, to know your history. And he said when that should happen, then we would get into business for ourselves and we would no longer depend on other people for things that we should be doing for ourselves. Now,
Absolutely.
that he said before 1965. Now, if you can get to that, you see, now let's take this up to today. Now, here is what we're all marching. And I told people, you want to march, here's the answer. March to the nearest African-American-owned store and buy it out. See, I'm not about boycotting white business. I'm about buying out black business.
Right.
That if all of us, instead of going all the way to D.C., because the folks that got real rich was Amtrak.
Right.
The people that got rich was right out on the trailway.
Right.
The people that got rich was the airlines and the hotels where we stayed. But if we had saved all that money to get to Washington, D.C., and marched to the nearest African-American-owned bookstore, if in Detroit we had marched to Nandy's or to any of the other African-American-owned stores, and if we had bought them out, if we had marched to the vendors in the street and made them go home early because they had nothing else to sell, that would have said more than anything else that we said on the podium in Washington, D.C., and that's what Malcolm was saying.
Are you talking about the March on Washington, August 28th, 1963?
No, I'm talking about the one that we just did a couple of weeks ago.
Okay. Which one in Washington? Which one? There's been so many.
The one that we were talking about the police brutality, and we were talking about standing up for our rights, and we were talking about the different things that we needed to do in order to get this together again. This was just a few weeks ago. Many of the leaders of today's movement were there.
Is that the one that the National Action Network and the National Urban League and the NAACP organized? I think that was that one. I think that was that one there in D.C. Okay, I understand. I've been following those. Go ahead.
I'm not going to argue with nobody about march. If you want to march, you march. But Dr. Clark told me the only thing that a march will do is wear the soles of your shoes out.
Right. Right, exactly.
Okay. If we had taken the money that it took to get there and gone to a black store and bought it out, that would have said more and moved this nation more. If the next time something go down where someone is shot inappropriately in our street, and if we were to tell Walmart, okay, Walmart, we ain't coming to your store for a year, you better believe Walmart executives are going to have a conversation with the local police precinct.
Yeah, yeah. And see,
if you want to hit them where their God is.
Exactly. And this is what I explain to people now. Mass protest has its purpose, okay? But oftentimes people misuse it. The purpose of mass protest is to draw attention to the problem so you can inform people about what the problem is, draw people plan of action to solve the problem, okay? So mass protest is a tactic, is not a plan, however. It doesn't solve the problem. So oftentimes what happens is I talk about, and you've heard me talk about this before, how we suffer from March Madness. I don't mean NCAA basketball March Madness, where you keep track of your bracket. I'm talking about March Madness. We get mad and we want to March Madness. So we think marching is a plan and don't understand it as a tactic. Okay. And that's where I think a lot of us make the mistake. And at the same time, when you look at your mainstream civil rights organizations, they haven't had an economic boycott of anything since about 2007. And see, that's another thing.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
And brother, I'm telling folks, I'm not into boycotting. Because the only thing boycotting proves is that you put your money in the wrong place in the first place.
Right. But I'm talking about imposing economic sanctions. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm saying in terms of the paradigm, take those sanctions, take the money that you are holding on to and go to a black store. You see, the Montgomery Bus Boycott was a great success, but it also was one of our greatest failures.
Teach. We're going to talk about that.
Because
Go ahead.
I would have hoped that after 381 days of not getting on their bus, at the end of 381 days, we would have formulated our own bus company and never gone back to them again.
Right. And I talk about that. I did a presentation, man, January 19th at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. And you've been to the museum before. We were there with Dr. Ray Higgins in 2010. I did a presentation, The Distortion of the Legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the Revolutionary, will not be televised. So you know the revolution will not be televised by Gil Scott Heron. My presentation was the revolutionary would not be televised, because the real revolutionary, Dr. King, they're not going to show that to you on the television. And I talked about the Montgomery Bus Boycott, and I broke it down in 3 phases: the mass protests, the economic boycott, and the lawsuit of Browder versus Gale, February 1st, 1956. Okay? And most people were not familiar with the lawsuit, which was extremely important because that's what ended segregation on the buses. All right. But you hit on something, and I've talked about this before also, how we were very naive then. The economic boycott that they did was good, and the 381 days, because that served as a testament of what we can do. But the fact that we did not organize a bus system like they had in Winston-Salem North bus system, okay, in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, the fact that at the end of that bus boycott, we gave the Montgomery bus line our money again, that was it was a win and a failure. Okay, talk about that, and why didn't we set up our own bus system?
Because we had not. What Malcolm was attempting to do was to change our thought process. He was trying to rewire our neurons.
Yes.
And the way in which he spoke to us, he was very successful in doing that. And if you just listen to that piece that you played just before, 1 minute or so, but in that 1 minute, he said so many profound things that if people acted on that 1 minute, it would change the very nature of the future of black folk, not just in America, but in the world.
Absolutely.
Because it would change the way you're thinking. Let's get your morality together. Stop fighting amongst yourselves. Stop talking about each other. Respect yourselves and respect each other. That's the moral code. And then learn about yourself. Learn about what you did. Realize that you not only can start your own business, you can not only excel in your business, but you're the one that taught the world how to do business.
Absolutely. It was African people who created economic systems. It was African people who were the first merchants. Okay? So this is so absolutely okay. Hold that thought. We got to take a quick break. We're coming back to just talk about this some more. We want to hear from you. Give us a call, 888-669-2281, 888-669-2281. You listen to the Michael M. Hotep Show on the Empowerment Radio Network, where knowledge is power. We'll be back in a few minutes. Welcome back to the Michael M. Hotep Show. Okay, we're speaking with Professor Kaba Kamene, also known as Booker T. Coleman. We're talking about Malcolm X, the man, his times, his relevance in 2015. Okay, Professor Kaba. Now, right before the break, the Montgomery Bus Boycott and how it was a win and a fail. And you were talking about how we were asking the question, why didn't they form their own bus system? Because they formed a carpooling system, and they had a dispatch service set up for a carpooling system that involved 300 cars. Okay, but they didn't set up a bus line. And you were telling us how their thought process wasn't wired to ownership. Talk about that for a minute.
Well, in this particular case, from what we're looking at, they wanted to prove a point, that they wanted to sit on their bus. And the real issue was, the larger agenda was that in the process of the Montgomery Bus Boycott, the drivers of the buses, the men of European descent, lost their jobs. The buses were kept in the it was crumbling. It was falling apart.
Right.
And if folk of African descent back then had decided to get their own bus company, they would have proven to the world and to America and to the South, we can bring your God down to his knees because we can make you lose your job. Mm-hmm. And that would have then propelled other black folks that were going through similar things. Hey, I think I'm going to do the same thing. So all of a sudden now, there would have been no more marches. Because you don't have to march, because when you're having success at tearing down the economic system that's run by peoples of European descent and building your own, you're too busy trying to build your businesses. You're not going to march. You're not going to try to get them to accept you. It's not about being accepted by them. It's about putting yourself in a position. Now, let's go back to Malcolm's statement that you played. This is what Malcolm was saying. If you change the way in which you treat each other, if you change the way in which by knowing yourself and have knowledge of yourself and who you are and who you have been and who you must become, then it changes the entire paradigm where you're not trying to prove to other people that you are acceptable because you've accepted yourself, and that's all you got to do. You start building your own economic system, which leads to controlling the politics of your community. And Claude Anderson is dropping on us, and as other folks, even yourself, brother, in your conversations with economics, you change the entire conversation.
Absolutely. You change the way people think.
Yeah, it's not about marching. But then African-American businesses begin to flourish. As African-American businesses flourish, more businesses are created. And pretty soon you've got your own little situation going on where you will be able to be the determinant of your own future. And that's what Malcolm was saying. And that's what's relevant today. Because Malcolm back then, we would not be walking around with placards that said Black Lives Matter, because the lives that matter would have been black. And we would have been able to do this. And it's not until we listen to Malcolm's story and understanding that Malcolm and his times, Malcolm was shaped by 5 very important people in history. The first person that I teach Malcolm was impacted by was Booker T. Washington.
Yes.
Booker T. Washington with his self-concept, with the development of knowledge in Tuskegee Institute. From Tuskegee Institute, there was a young brother in Jamaica impacted by Booker T. Washington, wanted to create a Tuskegee Institute in Jamaica. He wrote to Booker T. Washington, asked if he could come. Long story short, we're talking about the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. That's the second impact on Malcolm. The third impact is going to be the very man who is going to be impacted by Marcus Garvey, who is a Garveyite and who is a friend of Marcus Garvey, and also has a movement, and his name is the Honorable Noble Drew Ali.
Yes.
The Honorable Noble Drew Ali is going to raise an African nation ascribing to the tenets of Islam, and he is going to impact the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who is the 4th impact on Malcolm. The 5th impact on Malcolm is going to be Professor John Henry Clark, who's going to be Malcolm's history teacher.
Yes.
That is who is at the base of Malcolm's development. But it was women that shaped Malcolm. And the first woman that shaped Malcolm was his mother, Louise Langdon Norton. She shaped Malcolm. From Louise is now going to come his sister Ella, who is going to bring him to Boston.
Yes, yes.
The third woman who's going to impact Malcolm is going to be Sister Clara Muhammad, wife to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The 4th woman that's going to is Betty Saunders, who would become Dr. Betty Shabazz, his wife. And then the 5th impact on Malcolm, who is going to teach him, you see, Malcolm was shaped on different levels. Okay. His mother taught him how to be a son.
His mother taught him how to do what? His mother taught him what?
His mother taught him how to be a good son.
Okay.
The relationship of mother to son.
Yes.
Ella taught him how to be a good brother because that was who he was. So Malcolm is getting a sense of relationship with women. First his mother, then his sister. The third one is going to be the woman that shapes him to take him to the next level as it relates to his career. That is going to be Sister Dr. Clara Muhammad. Dr. Betty Saunders or Dr. Betty Shabazz is going to teach him how to be her man, her husband. And then the 5th and final are a group of 6 young ladies that's going to teach Malcolm how to be a father, and that's his daughter.
Right.
So when we talk about Malcolm X, the man in his time, We are born into times, and times shape us. What happens in those times allows us to react to the times, and then we shape the times around how the times have shaped us. And that's why it's so important to understand that the times that we're living in must shape us, and we must now turn back into the times and shape the times that we're living in. And I'm saying, if you want to march, you go ahead and march. But you march to your nearest African-American-owned store and buy them out. Don't boycott white, buy out black.
Right.
That's not his message.
And let me say this, and then we're going to get on to these other 2 points. We may run a little bit over to the next segment also. But I'm still waiting for the civil rights organizations to have the March for Economic Empowerment, because they've had the jobs and jobs. Where is the march for economic empowerment for African people, for African Americans? I'm waiting on them to have that march. So, but
but you know, brother, we don't have to have that march. All we got to do is march to black business. Ain't nobody going to empower us.
No, I understand. I understand that. I understand that.
Empower ourselves. So if we're going to march, let's march to the nearest black-owned store.
Right.
And buy it out.
Exactly.
Buy them out. Make
right.
them come home early. They ain't got no more to sell.
Right. Okay. Look, we're coming up on a break. We're going to go a little bit over to the next segment here, a few minutes into the next segment. But a few things I think are important to note is that when you look at Malcolm, he was basically up north. Dr. King, for the most part, was in the South. And you're dealing with, from my analysis of this, you were dealing with two different types of mentalities, so to speak, of African Americans. And Malcolm benefited from having the knowledge of his history, whereas most African Americans in the South, for the most part, weren't studying their history on that level, so they weren't impacted by it. Now, we know that Dr. King studied history, and he traveled to Ghana, he traveled to Africa, things like this. But Dr. King was not the movement, even though the media tries to make you think that he was the movement. Dr. King was not the movement. He was the head of the SCLC. He was elected the head and the spokesman of the Montgomery Improvement Association, things like this during the bus boycott. But Dr. King was not the movement. Okay, look, we're going to pick this up on the other side of the break and wrap up on the other side of the break. You listen to the Michael Imhotep Show on the Empowerment Radio Network, where knowledge is power. We'll be back in a few minutes. Welcome back to the Michael Imhotep Show on the Empowerment Radio Network, where knowledge is power. Okay, we're speaking with Professor Kaba Kamene, also known as Booker T. Coleman. You've seen him in Hidden Colors 1, 2, and 3. We're talking about, we're wrapping with Malcolm X, the man, his times, and his relevance in 2015. We still have Brother Kaba there? Did we lose him? Okay. Let me, okay, so, okay, he should be calling back in. He should be calling back in just a minute. Okay, let me know when he calls back in. Okay, so when he calls back in, what we're going to do is wrap up with how was Malcolm X relevant in 2015 when he died 50 years ago? We know that February 21st is the 50th anniversary of Malcolm's assassination. I encourage people to read the autobiography of Malcolm X, the autobiography of Malcolm X. There are a number of different ways you can approach this. You may want to, being that that's about 400 pages, you may want to watch documentaries like Make It Plain first. Okay, Make It Plain is one of the best documentaries on Malcolm, also By Any Means Necessary, as well as another good documentary. You can go online to YouTube. They have of Malcolm there as well. You can watch those to lay some context and then maybe get into the book, the autobiography of Malcolm X. Okay, we have Brother Kaba back. Okay, so Brother Kaba, how was Malcolm relevant in 2015 when he died 50 years ago, and how can we teach our children and our people about Malcolm?
You know, I think that we all should go out to a African-American owned store, and we ought to buy the movie Malcolm by Spike Lee.
Okay,
I think that we should spend time with our families showing Malcolm live. There's a lot of, all of his speeches are online.
Yeah, YouTube.
And yes, on YouTube. You know, and we just have to understand the importance of this man and the role that he played in terms of his message. His message is a combination of Booker T. Washington Garvey, Noble Drew Ali, Elijah Muhammad, and John Henry Clark. All of them combined was his message. And we need to realize that that message is as alive and necessary today as it has ever been before. And so when we honor Malcolm, we honor, as Ossie Davis said in the eulogy of Malcolm, when we honor Malcolm, we honor the very best in us. We don't have to go back to ancient Egypt and dwell in ancient Egypt, in the ancient world, to find the Nesut Biti, or who we call the Pharaoh. We had a Pharaoh amongst us at one time, and that Nesut was Malcolm. He was our shining black prince who was willing to give up his life for us.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know...
And we need more people with his spirit. We need more people with his spirit around us today, willing to speak on these issues. Malcolm taught us freedom is death. He not only taught us that, he did it. And for that, I will forever be grateful for what he did and the sacrifice that his family made in order to make this possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think it's important for people to listen to his speeches. They're on YouTube. A lot of them. Get his book, The Autobiography of Malcolm X. Check out the documentary, Make It Plain. Make It Plain is one of the best documentaries on Malcolm X. Check that documentary out. Also, By Any Means Necessary is another documentary. Watch the Malcolm X movie, The X by Spike Lee and Denzel Washington. And at the same time, you'll see how what Malcolm was talking about relates to today as well. Okay. Also on YouTube is the full 90-minute debate that Malcolm did with Wyatt T. Walker and James Farmer. I think the date was June 11, 1963. It was the same day that Medgar Evers was shot. It's the full 90-minute debate. It was on a show called Race Relations in America Then and Now, something like that. Race in America Then and Now. And the last 14 or 15 minutes is a 30-year follow-up with Wyatt T. Walker and James Farmer, and Robert Forrester, I think was his name, was the host. Okay. And Wyatt T. Walker and James Farmer, they talk about how Malcolm had the most accurate and clearest analysis back at that time. And they talked about how they were very naive and they thought they were on the verge of defeating racism and things like that. Wyatt T. Walker and James Farmer, they talked about how they were very naive back at that time in the 60s, also how Malcolm had the most accurate and clearest analysis at that time. So that's information that we really need to get into. How do you think we should go about teaching our children about Malcolm? Because Malcolm is not talked about in the majority of our schools. They may talk about Dr. King, but they don't talk about Malcolm X. Go ahead.
Well, if I could recommend again for the families to get a book, and I use this book in my class, even in college, it's called Malcolm Little, the boy who grew up to be Malcolm X, written by Ilyasah Shabazz.
Give us that name again.
That speaks of the quality. It's entitled Malcolm Little. It's subtitled The Boy Who Would Grow Up to Be Malcolm X.
Okay.
Written by Malcolm's third daughter, Ilyasah Shabazz.
Okay.
And it looks at Malcolm as a young boy growing up and his experiences. And it allows children to see Malcolm child and not the grown man that we're all used to. I encourage everybody to get that book. I got it. In fact, I bought 2 copies of that book. Go to a black-owned store and get that book by Ilyasah Shabazz. Also, get the Malcolm X that just came out by Herb Boyd and Ilyasah Shabazz. Now, that was going to be an appendix to Malcolm wrote that diary to become a second autobiography because Malcolm went through 5 phases in his life. Malcolm Little, Detroit Red, Malcolm X, El-Hajj Malik Shabazz, and Omar Wally.
Okay, give us those 5 phases again. Give us those 5 phases
Malcolm
again.
Little.
Uh-huh.
Malcolm Little was the first. He was born that. Then Detroit Red is the next transformation when he's on the street of Boston and New York. The third one is when he's in prison and he becomes Malcolm X. The fourth one is El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz. And El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz is spoken about in his diary that just came out. And I recommend us to get that book. I just added that on to my course outline for my students to read.
Okay.
Malcolm X, a very important book that is in his writing and his story coming from him. The autobiography is Alex Haley's story.
Right.
As told to him by Malcolm, but this diary is Malcolm himself. Omar Wali is the one who returned. Omar Wali is that Malcolm El-Haj Malik El-Shabazz that he never knew. It is his legacy. The Omar Wali, the fifth phase of Malcolm's life, is his memory that we have of him. And as I end my classes in May, teaching Malcolm, one of the things I have our students do is in the age where they are, somewhere between 19 and 22, I want you to write your obituary. I want you to write the story that you would like at this age for people to think of you. Who do you want people to remember you for eternity? And that is your Omar Wali. And each and every has to stop and wonder, what is the legacy that we are going to leave behind that will tell people what we did? You know, when you're born is the date, and when you die, there's a date. And between the day you were born and the day you died, there's a dash.
Right.
My question is, what is your dash? What did you do between you when you were born and when you died? What is your legacy? What are you leaving behind? Steps that you're leaving behind for those yet unborn to follow. And Malcolm, I am teaching Malcolm to people who were not born. So his legacy is for those who are yet unborn.
Right.
He is our
right.
shining black woman. And
Absolutely.
we should never forget what he gave you.
Absolutely. Okay, very quickly, tell people how they can get in contact with you, how they can get your DVDs, and what should they do if they want to bring you in to do a presentation.
Email me, Kamene777 at AOL.com. Kamene 777 at AOL.com. Kamene 777 at AOL.com. Email me, I'll send you my study guide.
Yes.
If you email me, I'll send you my course syllabus, how I teach Malcolm X. I'll give you the books. I'll show you how I developed teaching Malcolm X over a certain period of time, including the books, the DVDs that I play, and how I move through his life. Email me. I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
Because we need to study this man. We need to study our history.
Absolutely. Your study guide is about 70 pages. It's about 70 pages of study
It's
guide?
70 pages long.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that covers the part where Malcolm is talking about to know yourself. That's our history. You want to know what we should teach our children? My study guide takes us through that process. It lists the books. It lists the themes to study. It takes us through a process, and it helps us understand the chronological way in which we need to study ourselves, returning back to an African model as to how we teach and how we learn.
Absolutely. Okay, look, we're out of time. So visit his website, pantherprince.com, Panther, pantherprince.com. You can order his DVDs there. Also, email him, Kamene777 at AOL.com. On Facebook, it's Kaba Kamene, Kaba, Kaba Kamene on Facebook. Okay, Brother Kaba, we'll talk to you later, Brother Hotep. Thanks for coming on tonight, okay?
Brother, I appreciate you. My very best to you and yours, and to the family that's listening. To the Empowerment Network.
Okay, brother. Take care. Hotep. All right. That's one of my teachers, Professor Kaba. Hey, look, that's going to do it for us tonight. We're out of time. We ran a little bit over with that segment, but hey, it was worth it. Tomorrow night on the show, we're going to be joined by Professor James Small. You've seen him in Hidden Colors too, Professor James Small. And also tomorrow, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m., I'll be on the Mildred Gaddis Show talking about Dr. Carter G. Woodson and Black History Month. WCHB 1200 AM.